If I told you that emotional mastery is the key to good health, to a successful relationship, and success in your business and your career, would it be something that you would invest in and want to work on? You see, AI and virtual reality are the new kids on the block. They're literally everywhere, from our homes to healthcare, hospitals, education, law firms. They are everywhere. And I think it's a very, very exciting time to be alive. Yet for a lot of people, this causes some overwhelm and fear. People fear that we are becoming more and more disconnected in this day and age. But I believe that as human beings, connection is fundamental to our existence. And so because of this, we will continue to thrive as long as we maintain connection and emotional connection with one another. Now, throughout time, we have always been waiting for either technology or science or research to catch up with us, either to solve problems, to find the next cure, or whatever it may be. But I believe that within every single one of you, and myself, within people in general, we have within us the solution to one of the biggest problems currently plaguing our collective existence right now. And that problem that I'm talking about is mental health and mental well-being. Now, I know that mental well-being and mental health are a bit of a buzzword at the moment, and have been for the past 3 to 5 years. And I think it's absolutely great, because there is now more awareness of it. People are speaking up about it. There is less stigma around the whole situation or the idea of mental health and mental illness. And this truly is great, because awareness is where we start to resolve all problems initially. Fine? But just talking about it or having the awareness is not enough. Now, what I believe is that our approach towards mental health and mental well-being is slightly flawed. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about today and share with you some insights that will hopefully change your approach to it. Okay? Now, statistics state that 1 in 4 people in the UK currently struggle with some form of anxiety. And 1 in 6 people in the UK have some form of depression or anxiety. So it's safe to say that it is quite a big problem. Now, to put that into perspective, what that means is, in this very room right now, there are about 25 people at least that may be facing some form of mental health battle, as it were. And if we were to take a step back and expand out a bit, I'm pretty sure that every single person in this room knows at least one other person who struggles with anxiety, depression, PTSD, some mental health related issue. Am I right? Yeah? So it's safe to say that it's very widespread. Now, the problem is not in just identifying it. Great, that's the first tick and that's what we've done. But then what are we doing about it? You see, with any problem that we face in our lives, you have one of 2 options. The first option is for you to rewind, go back to the root cause, find how this happened, what went wrong, and then fix that. Because if you fix the root cause of a problem, then just like a domino effect, everything else falls into place. Or you have option number 2. And option number 2 is where you basically just ignore it, hope for the best, hope that it will fix itself, and just put a few plasters on it, and then cross your fingers, and then that's it. Now, unfortunately, this is not a solution. Yet when it comes to mental health and mental well-being, this is very much the case of what we seem to be doing. Yes, we've identified that people have anxiety, depression, whatever it may be. Yes, people are speaking out about it. However, we are then just covering up the symptoms by prescribing medication, by telling people that they have to learn and cope with it, by teaching them breathing techniques or distraction or whatever it may be. We're not actually fixing the root cause of the problem. Right? Now think of it this way, for those of you who drive. So let's say you're driving your car and suddenly the check engine light comes on, okay? Now you might ignore it initially, and then the next day you get in your car, the light's gone off, all's good. But then a week later, the light comes back on, and you ignore it, and you ignore it, and then suddenly you're on the side of the M1 wishing you hadn't ignored it, and wishing that you'd done something to start with. The concept is the same. So we need to move away from this idea of just patchwork and symptomatic relief. Now, approximately 5 years ago, I came across the work of an American orthopedic surgeon who pioneered in the world of mind-body syndrome. He was a back surgeon by the name of Dr. John Sarno. And if you're not familiar with his work, I highly recommend checking him out. Over the span of his career, 30 years, he found that all the operations that he was doing on people's backs were not completely resolving the issue of pain that they had. Now, you could argue, well, maybe he wasn't a great surgeon. However, he was highly decorated in his field, so the issue wasn't in the surgery. What he later found was that related to the pain that these people had was underlying suppressed anger. Now, this for me was the catalyst that helped me to start transitioning from a world of surgery myself to working with people who have anxiety and mental health related issues. Because this idea really fascinated me, because he did what we were initially taught in the healthcare world. He got to the root cause of the problem and eliminated it, and so in turn, everything else just fell into place. So I started to study human behavior. I started to study mindset, mentality, emotions, and I really got into it. And what I started to learn, I would then apply in the hospital with my patients that I was seeing. And the results that I was getting were phenomenal to start with. And so I thought, okay, well, if this is the case with chronic pain patients, and I started to notice anxiety so widespread, what's stopping me then from applying the same approach to mental health? So I started sitting down with the people and the clients and the patients that I was working with who had anxiety. And I started to trace back to the root cause of the problem. Now, over the past 3 years, hundreds of people that I've trained, spoken to, worked with, who struggle with whatever form of anxiety you want to put the label to, whether it be general, social, health, there was a common theme that ran with all of them. Just as there was anger related to the chronic pain, when it came to mental health, more specifically anxiety, the running theme was fear. And it was fear of not being in control. Across the board, there was an underlying fear of not being in control. Now, throwing in a bit of anger at themselves or at their parents, bless our parents, or with some of them, there was even the notion of not enough or not good enough. And I know that this is a very widespread belief as well. However, across the board, the theme was fear. So at this point, there's two things to note really about the emotion. So we're starting to understand we need to fix any problem, so we need to go to the root cause. We've kind of identified that the problem with anxiety is fear, right? So tick, tick, perfect. Now we need to understand that all emotions are healthy. They are naturally occurring. We experience all of them. We experience fear, anger, even anxiety. We all experience them on a spectrum. They're very normal, they're very natural, they're very healthy. The second thing to note is that all emotions are learnt. You are not born with a download or blueprint of emotions. We all learn our emotions. They are learnt behavior which you learn as a child through your experience growing up around your parents, at school, whatever it may be. You experience things and then you learn what an emotion is. You then go on and you have other experiences, and through what you have learned, you attach meaning to those events and experiences. What this means is that every single thing that you experience has zero meaning until you individually attach a meaning to it based on what emotion it has evoked within you. That's the reason that two people can experience the exact same event and give it two very different meanings, right? I'm also willing to bet that every single person sat in this room is experiencing the exact same moment in time, but we are experiencing it very, very differently based on our emotional state, based on our filters, so on and so forth. So what was apparent then and what we needed to do, and what I started to do with all the people that I worked with, was basically trace back to the root cause of what was causing this fear, right? And then the beautiful thing was that when we started working on that fear from its root cause, when we changed the meaning of it, when we let go of the emotional charge, everything else, all the other symptoms simply subsided. It was like a domino effect. It was literally like flicking a switch, because we had got to the root cause of the problem. And so everything else fell into place. We weren't patching anything up. So all the symptoms that accompanied it, the overthinking, the weight loss or weight gain with some people, the sweaty palms, whatever the symptoms were, simply disappeared literally overnight for a lot of these people, because we had worked on the root cause. And what was very common, a lot of people said over and over again, is for the first time in a long time, they felt like themselves again. And that was truly beautiful. So this got me thinking, and I'd invite you to start thinking about this as well. What if then, what if the anxiety or depression or whatever the mental health related issue is, what if that is not an illness? What if it is not a disease? What if it's not a disorder? What if it's in fact only a symptom from our mind and from our body telling us that we have some repressed emotion that we have not dealt with? So it's not about a chemical imbalance. It's not about hereditary genes. It's all about the emotions. And this is where we need to start focusing and looking at. Because this stuff isn't taught, unfortunately, in hospitals or in healthcare. But we need to start focusing on the emotional side of things, right? So maybe it's our mind's way of saying, I have this repressed emotion that I need to deal with. And it can't scream out and say, hey, listen, deal with this fear. So it shows it in the way of anxiety or whatever symptoms you may have. So our approach needs to change in that regards. And then my suggestion to you is this. If you are carrying any anger or any fear within you as the audience, if you are carrying any of that, maybe it's time to let go and reassess, what are you carrying it for? Because I promise you, holding on to those emotions, especially anger and fear, do not serve you in any way. Some people think, well, if I hold this anger towards my parents, towards whoever did me wrong, then it means I do not forgive them. And that's not the case. It doesn't mean that. You are only harming yourself by doing so. And so if you are holding on to any anger or fear, please ask yourself, what am I gaining from holding this? And then also ask yourself, what do I need to learn to let go of this emotion so I can move forward? Because when you do that, I promise you, you are doing your emotional, your mental, and your physical health and well-being a massive favor. And then for those of you who struggle with this idea or the feeling of not good enough or not enough in general, I want you to know that I genuinely, truly believe in you. I really do. And the people around you also believe in you. It's just time that you start believing in yourself and stop with the excuses. Thank you very much.